while you gathered yourselves, could I just ask if access to what set of data would make the biggest difference to you that you don't currently have? This is for the active researchers. What would you really like to get your hands on? Tom?
Primary care data. So I think it's the obvious answer, but I think the point is that there's such a diversity of linked health data that is available, and it's about maximizing the use of the UK Biobank resource. So there's obviously a lot of focus on primary care data. That's because it offers, I think, quite clear benefits in terms of more detailed data, simply, on a range of conditions, as well as opening up a lot of opportunities to look at conditions that, as I mentioned, you can't really do it with a degree of accuracy. But I think these sessions, they're always great to open up ideas of other available health data that is available, and actually it's about the logistics and understanding the feasibility of how that can be linked in to UK Biobank.
Thanks, Tom. Claire, you've got the mic.
Okay. I'd just like to introduce myself, if that's all right. I'm a GP. Can I just ask who in this audience is also a GP? So one. And
it's a lonely life.
Well, no, I think that tells a tale, doesn't it? And I know that access to primary care data is difficult. I know that my own profession is, for one reason or another, putting in a lot of blocks along the way, blocks linked to fear of being the data controller, all sorts of things. The sky's going to fall in and chickens will fall down on their head. But I think the very fact that what I've heard here is extraordinary, is totally inaccessible to my own profession. Inaccessible because we don't collectively take part in much research, certainly not biomedical genomic research. I also think to a certain extent it's you out there not making it accessible to us and not actually driving home the importance of your fabulous lectures around the importance of data linkages for genomics. I mean, I'm here because I'm on the platform. And if I wasn't, and as Ian's just said, I was the president of the Royal College of GPs up to 2 weeks ago. So my urge is, if you want primary care data, if you want to make these transformational changes in how my patients are managed in terms of pharmacogenomics, then all of you need to love a GP. Okay, every one of you, every time you visit your GP, you need to go, what about UK Biobank? Are you releasing data? And they'll look at you as if you're bonkers, but keep on going.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Maybe just before we leave GP data, there's a question come in from someone watching online. Does special care need to be taken when integrating GP and HES data? Is there a danger of inherent bias? Tom, can you?
Well, my initial reaction until it went to bias was that the question was more alluding to the discussion around privacy or issues of this detailed data. So I don't work for UK Biobank, so I can't comment on the exact processes. But UK Biobank has dedicated teams that work with this data, that have very detailed processes put in place to ensure that this type of data is made available in adherence to a range of ethical issues, governance issues as well. So, for example, there's a data analyst team who spend a lot of time working with the hospital data before making it available. So that involves standardizing it, processing it, to ensure that it's research ready. So it's difficult for me to comment in terms of what they mean by bias. But I think a lot of consideration does go into, the point you're making about GPs is important too, because logistics comes into this as well. But a lot of consideration and thought goes into how this data is going to be made available, rather than just, here it is, here's all the data. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to make it research ready.
Okay.
But the prize is staggering, as you all said. It's absolutely staggering, because we keep millions and millions and millions of data points on 55 million people.
Can I ask Reecha, what data set would make a real difference to you if you had it available?
So from the work that we've presented, we've had access to primary care dispensing data, and maybe 10 to 15 years ago, that would be enough, because it would cover a large proportion of the cost of medicines that we in England. But actually now it's half and half. So secondary care data, medicines data is actually missing from this equation. So that's the cancer chemotherapeutics, there's SAC data that Prab's alluded to, the high-cost drugs, which are all the monoclonal antibodies and so forth. So it's about gathering those expensive medicines data and then beginning to link and actually seeing if they actually have the efficacy that is borne out in the randomized control trial in the real world, and we can actually determine if these medicines are cost effective as well.
Can I maybe bring in Daphne at this point? I mean, what sort of technological advances would make a big difference? That you're getting into AI. Are we going to see real advances as a result of that in data linkages and doing the sort of work you're doing?
I was hoping to answer the data question,
We'll
which
do
is
that.
what data
Do that first.
But I will link the two together. So I think that as I showed, there's just a tremendous amount of information that is lying, waiting to be tapped in these high content data that are collected from patients as part of the standard of care, whether, as we've shown, it's in histopathology images, in radiology, we didn't talk about that, in EKG, in EEG, all of these are there collected, often longitudinally. So you have multiple readings from the same patient, and enabling us to potentially detect subtle changes that happen as the patient progresses in their disease. That is a goldmine of discovery, both in helping with patient care as well as in identifying potential novel drivers of disease that might provide novel therapeutic interventions. So I think part of the challenge, and this is coming back to answer the question that you just asked me, this is a place where AI and machine learning techniques can really make a very big difference. One of the things that we've seen time and time again in the last few years is that machines can see things, can see subtle patterns in these high content data that even highly trained clinicians have not seen, have not figured out how to look at. And I think by providing this kind of information to the sophisticated machine learning methods that we have available to us today, we can start to really uncover novel biology that underlies human disease. But without these high content data that are often collected by our wonderful GP colleagues, as we've heard, by specialty hospitals that collect some more advanced data modalities, we will simply not be able to transform human health using machine learning, because the thing that feeds modern day machine learning is data.
Yeah, okay, that's a very clear answer. Any quick comment from Prabha or Nicola before we go to the audience?
Is this like my Christmas wish list of what I want? So, yeah, Ian's Father Christmas. I think that everyone's got specific research questions that they're going to want data for. And like Daphne says, if we could have a perfect data set, wonderful, but we're not. For instance, tumours evolve and they relapse, they fail chemotherapy. So actually, I don't truly know for all of those kind of very short relapses why someone has failed in their first dose of chemotherapy. If they have toxicity, for instance, if it's just tingling in their fingers and they've changed their regime, we don't really understand that from the registry data. So how do we get better insights from that? I'm going to ask for a slightly left field thing, is actually like what you get in limb systems, so in blood tests, for instance. So there's lots of inflammatory type tumours that kind of spawn about, and actually we've never really ever kind of looked at how blood profiles, white cell counts and lymphocyte counts kind of correlate then to the point of tumours. We, like Daphne and I, our groups are looking at kind of the lymphocytes around tumours and actually whether they're invading into tumours. Is that then correlated? So I think everyone's got an interest in lots of different types of data sets. And I think everyone's going to kind of have different interests. Yes, primary care is fascinating. It could really direct us for kind of early diagnostics. And like you say, we are trying to work with some of the GPs in our kind of specialist academic group to see what the value is to them. And we can only kind of do that by small use cases, showing the value nationally. We have seen some benefits in the COVID pandemic. We sequenced 35,000 people and had access to primary care. And actually it was fascinating. It was really insightful. So I think by just doing that, and as you say, as a group and like multiple biobanks as groups working together to deliver that, we will show insights.
And without meaning to labour the point too much, I would also say GP data really is the missing link. I mean, medical research charities are always telling us that the data they most need for research is GP data. I think that becomes even more relevant with UK Biobank. It is the missing link. And perhaps the point that we haven't said enough already is that the participants want their data to be used. Yeah. They've given consent for linkage to the GP data, and a lot of them are expecting it to already be flowing.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I want to get a few questions from the audience now. There's a hand up at the back there. If someone could mop up the back row.
Hi, my name's Mark. I'm from University of Bristol. I'm just wondering, the example you used for dementia, I think it was only 1 in 6 roughly were in the hospital data. Would you say that's representative? We're missing out on that across the board for mental health?
So I think the figure was more about 40%. So I think there is an overlap, obviously. So you have people who are in both sources of data, but then you have primary care data, which is where many cases are first presenting. So again, another point is that these people, they will often present in hospital, but it takes time for that to happen. And at that point, they're at a different stage of their condition. So in terms of dementia as well, you know, there was a whole session dedicated to discussing dementia, and that is the area I actually work in directly. And it is a perfect example of a condition that is very difficult to diagnose. And even outside of the GP data, there's a lot of under-ascertainment, under-diagnosis of dementia. So, you know, at the moment, we're relying on hospital data, relying on death registry data. There has been validation work. So, you know, there has actually been a lot of work by other groups who've looked at, you know, how well these data sets perform in terms of their accuracy. So are we confident that what they are diagnosed with is accurate? And for dementia, it seems pretty good. For subtyping, as again was mentioned earlier this morning, it's not great. It's not great at all. So that is a good example of a condition where really if you include primary care data, then you are including a lot more information, you're including a lot more cases, but you're also capturing individuals earlier on in terms of when they've been diagnosed.
Thank you very much. Let's have a question from number 4.
Hi, I'm Balint Stewart from the UK. I was just wondering so I was interested in the perspective of the GP and providing primary data and the sort of perceived risk about doing that. And I was wondering whether the panel could reflect a bit on sort of the benefits, more specifically sort of communicating the benefits to participants who provide their data. So I was curious, for example, whether the UK Biobank tell participants about the specific studies. Are they able to, is the infrastructure there to let the participants know that their data has actually enabled, you know, this drug discovery or these papers to be published, and whether or not that's something from an infrastructure perspective we should be thinking more about ways to make that link between the public who are providing their data. Ultimately, this is the public's data that we're talking about and the benefits that's derived from it.
I suspect they all want to have a go at that one, but Claire got her hand up first.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think actually it's just the participants you need to be focusing on. Not the other day, I was at a dinner party when my friend told me she'd spent the whole day having her brain scanned as part of biobank research and was over the moon, even though she's not going to get the results herself. It's the profession. I don't think you see, biobank is caught up in all the other conspiracy theories about data. And every day, the GPs are asked to do searches. Only this week, we've had 3 demands for searches for MHRA senders for things that go wrong in the system. So every day we're doing searches, nothing to do with research, but having to find drugs or people. And I think it's my profession that doesn't know what's going on. We're caught up in this sort of 15 to 20 year dialogue that somehow we're going to be releasing data and that somebody's going to go and identify somebody, or there's going to be an illegal immigrant that's going to be identified and sent back, and there's all these conspiracy theories. And so it's my profession that should be sitting here listening to this, because what I've heard today, I mean, my husband's enrolled in Biobank, so I know everything, but we need to know all of these stories, and actually the participants need to be your advocates. They need to be going and banging on the door. We're seeing the whole population 5 times a year, so the whole population, 300 million people.
So talk to the profession, not to the...
Talk to the profession, I mean, obviously keeping the public informed, but it's the profession.
Nicola?
I think one has to keep communicating with the participants as well, though. I think that's really important for them to understand how their data is being used and what their contribution is. So UK Biobank does already update participants as a regular newsletter, but there's always more that can be done. And I think you're absolutely right. The more participants and the public and healthcare professionals are aware of all the benefits and the impact of research with UK Biobank, it should help the confidence and ensure that data can flow.
Thank you. Let's have question number 3 and then number 1. Number 3.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Aisha and I am from Pakistan. I did my master's in food safety and quality management. I have a comment over here. I did research on the bladder cancer microbiome. I just wanted to know that when you are studying cancer, are you catering that microbiome in context when we are treating cancer patients or any other diseases? The significance of microbiome in curance of disease is very critical these days. Like if you are giving certain medicine to a person or a patient, then the patient might not reactive to that medicine because of the microbiome that the person possesses. And also there are a number of diseases in the world that have now been cured through microbiome. Like if we are ignoring that thing, so I think we are lacking somewhat behind it. Secondly, the medicine research, the other speaker said that there are lots of medicine we are giving to the patients on a hit and trial basis. There are certain genes in our body that are if I am given Panadol, I might be not reactive against that. But if I give a paracetamol, then my body going to react over that. So in this term, we need to just look into the personalized medicine is going to be maybe a future of our efficiency in the field of medicine, and the microbiome is the second most thing which I believe we all need to be catered whenever we are doing any sort of study.
Okay, I'm not sure I heard all of that, but I know the microbiome is the cause of all ill these days. So I think half the question was on cancer and half on therapeutics. So Prabha first and then Reecha.
Microbiome, short answer, yes. We don't, as Genomics England, do all the research ourselves. We have a couple of thousand academic researchers doing that, and there are a few groups that are looking at, in particular, colorectal cancer. We appreciate the importance, but we can only provide, like UK Biobank, data sets and highly curated data sets for others to undertake their research, and we know that that is one of those fields that's being done. So yes, it is.
Reecha, do you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. I think what we've seen in the series of talks is that actually what we're doing is advancing our ability to do multimodal data analysis, and microbiomes will certainly fit into that. And it is about collecting them and then being able to use linked data, GP, medicines, pathology data to actually understand the context of that microbiome to deliver, whether it can deliver and test those personalized approaches. So I think it's still to be done, but absolutely.
The last question is number 1.
Hi, I'm Han from Oxford NDPH. So this question is directed to Daphne. So what do you think is the role of AI in helping us understand high-dimensional or high-frequency time series signal that is beyond human comprehension? And second to that question is, for that kind of vision to be really making meaningful changes to the patients and transform human health, and what sort of evidence do we have to provide?
That's a great question. So I didn't talk about high frequency time series data, but the same type of analysis that has been leveraged in images is also used in time series data in other other type of data, for example, in speech and video and multiple other cases. And certainly the same type of analysis can also be used in high frequency time series data in medicine, EEG, EKG, and others. We've even done some of that work ourselves a long time ago when I was still at Stanford. We worked with bedside monitor data, and it was from preemies in the NICU, and it was incredible to see how much information signal there was, even in that very simple data modality that really did inform, in that case, on patient prognosis, for example, which of these premature infants was more likely to have mortality or major morbidity, which could certainly impact the way in which they were monitored and cared for. I think this was a long time ago with a lot less data and a lot less sophisticated machine learning methods. With the technology that's available to us today and the amount of data that would be available, for example, if you were able to link those primary care records into resources such as the UK Biobank, I think there would be a tremendous opportunity, for example, to see, as we've seen, for example, in studies for atrial fibrillation, early signs of the disease, different subtypes of disease that might benefit from different types of treatment. All of that would, I think, would readily emerge from that kind of signal, as well as the opportunity for novel discoveries that would give rise to therapeutics over time.
Good. Well, thank you very much. I think, sadly, we must draw things to a close there so that you would have your tea. There's some poster presentations there, I think. Thank you to all the speakers for wonderful presentations, and special thanks to our two extras for the discussion. Thank you very much.